first mayoral debate in the city of Helena. Do we know that historically?
I don't know.
Anyway, I'm going to be serving as the moderator. My name is Brian Peters. My claim to fame, I think, is that I've lived in Helena for 31 years, 31.3 years. So, moved here in 1989, which was a long time ago. A lot of changes in the city. I remember being greeted by a certain police officer. And I've outlived him, unfortunately, but it's great to be part of this community. Very quickly, I want to thank everybody for coming out, barring the circumstances that we find ourselves under. And unfortunately, it's just the way it is, so I'm glad everybody came out. Very quickly, we're going to allow the candidates just a minute and a half or 2 minutes each to introduce themselves. And I'm going to be very arbitrary with my questioning. I'm going to ask first one, then the other kind of thing, so back and forth, so the same guy doesn't have to go twice. So, Scott, why don't you start?
My name is Scott Sullivan. I've lived in Helena for 20 years. Been married to my wife Jennifer for 28 years. We have 2 daughters. We have 1 grandson. I was a police officer for 25 years. I worked 5 years for the city of Midfield and 20 years for the city of West Indian Hills. I retired last November. And that's about it.
All right, thank you. Mr. Puckett?
All right, Brian Puckett. I have been a resident of Helena for the last 15 years. So I have spent a lot of time in the city volunteering my time, and I've looked for ways to be able to give back to the community. So I currently sit as a Helena City Council member in place 2, where I will be vacating that seat, seeking this election, or this role as mayor during this election. So I am married and I have 5 total kids as a blended family, and they range from the ages of 11 down to 6. So the future of Helena is definitely extremely important to me.
Thank you. Okay. Very quickly, just so everybody knows what the ground rules are here. This has been well thought out, I think. Time is definitely of the essence here. And one of my key duties as moderator is to make sure that each participant is allotted the 2 minutes to answer the question. And then, if I could quote one of the famous lawmen of our history, Barney Fife, zip it, zip it, zip it, when the 2 minutes is up, okay? We will alternate the questions back and forth that is, I ask a question first of one, then the other, and then the other, and back to the one. So, and again, they each have 2 minutes. There is no rebuttal. So that question was brought up by one of our candidates, and there's simply, you just answer the question and no opportunities for rebutting that. So at the end of the organized session, which is going to be somewhere in the vicinity of 7:30, we will then allow each candidate 2 minutes to state any remaining information that they believe would be helpful in helping those of you here in making your decisions as a voter. So kind of closing remarks. Does anybody have any questions as we get started here? All right, great. Thank you. Let's start out here. And we'll start out with Brian. What do you see, and remember this is going to be your same question, okay. What do you see as the top 3 opportunities to improve life in Helena?
So, can y'all hear me without the microphone? Yes? Okay, is it okay if I talk without the microphone?
It helps with our live streaming.
Perfect, okay, awesome. So, okay, the top 3 things that I think that the Helena needs to be looking at for the future. First is our infrastructure. We need to make sure that our roads are being improved. We need to partner with ALDOT and Shelby County to make sure that we're doing everything we can as a city and being aggressive partners with them in order to get improvements on the roads. The second thing is our schools. Many of you have school kids. We know that the schools are Shelby County schools, but we can't use that as an excuse. We have to make sure that as a city, we are partnering with Shelby County. So there's different ways that we can think outside of the box in order to be able to help with the schools, to be able to get new buildings, to be able to get better resources for our kids. And then finally, the third thing is that's most important is the culture that we have. The culture small town community feel. So we know that Helena has changed over the past few years and will continue to change. So as a leader for your city, we've got to make sure that we keep that culture of a small town feel alive. We've got to make sure that no matter what comes here, what goes, we always have the same culture and aspect on life of that small town community feel.
All right, Scott?
One of the things I would like to work on as a project would be the improvement of our city parks. I think we would benefit greatly from improving those equipment-wise, improving our fields there, and making a park like Joe Tucker Park a gathering place for kids and parents alike to come and enjoy together and have fun. Also, I agree on the roads. We've got to work and try to get ahead of the road situation. We're behind right now, but that is a never-ending fight, and traffic is going to be always here, and the best thing we can do is try to mitigate it. Also, the community feel we've got here in Helena is one of the most important things to me. That's why we moved here, because it's a community of people. It's a community that gathers, they get together, work together, play together, and that's what brought us here, and I think that's what brought a lot of other people here also. So I think it's more than just a culture, so to say. A community is more of a lifestyle, and it's what I think people want around here.
All right. In reference to that first question, what are your plans, or what plans do you have to accomplish your goals that you stated about these issues? Scott?
Okay, well, with the parks, you can pay for those things incrementally. We don't have to do it as one huge project that's a huge cost to the city. If we were to look at something like installing maybe a splash pad at the park for the kids to play on, several ways you can pay for that. One would come out of the budget and cost the city and the taxpayers all the money. Other ways to look at paying for it is you can institute a user fee for the people that want to use it. Just a small fee to come, and you can use the thing and play all day or whatever. And then once it's paid for, then that money can go into maintenance. So it really wouldn't be a cost burden to the city. And the roads, it's basically, you've got to stay on the county and the state and help get these things done. All these county and state roads, if we can help offset the cost of some of those projects, I think that they will be more willing to help us do it. And and the community, you just keep it as a community. It won't really cost you anything.
All right, Brian?
Okay, so I think I started off with the roads. So the biggest thing that I'll have to do and need to do and will do in those 4 years is knock on the doors of Aldott down in Montgomery and Shelby County down in Columbia. They can only tell me no so many times before they'll want to get rid of me and say, yes, we'll go ahead and get this done. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we got to think outside of the box on how we help those institutions fund the remaining portion of our roads. So we know that we cannot, as a city, widen 261 or put in the bypass. We just don't have the capital or be able to bond ourselves to death to do that. So we've got to make sure that we go to these partners and we say, okay, here is X amount of dollars for all of the engineering fees or whatever the case may be to help speed up the pace of their projects. The same thing with the Shelby County Schools. So we've always talked about is Shelby County Schools, they're going to deal with it and so forth like that. We need to be an active partner with them. So we need to go to Dr. Brooks and say, we know that we're one of the top 3 municipalities that's with Shelby County in growth. It's Chelsea, Calera, and Helena. So how do we get bumped up that list? Okay? We have the 1 cent fund that is earmarked for education. Why not leverage some of that 1 cent fund to help spur along the building costs that they're going to come up with at Shelby County? And then finally, the culture that I talked about and that hometown feel. How do I, in the next 4 years, help maintain that? Is being an active part of the community, just like I have been for the past several years. It's being shoulder to shoulder as a leader with every single resident in this town. It's making sure that I am visible, that I'm visible at those HPA meetings that are 8 o'clock in the morning, or at that 7:30 soccer game or baseball game. I'm always visible to this community and with them shoulder to shoulder.
Okay, I'm just checking the time.
I had 3 seconds to three.
Yeah, I can't see it. Kind of along the lines of those first 2 questions, If elected, how much would you be available for the public in terms of meetings, sporting events, business meetings, business openings? And Ryan, we'll start with you.
Absolutely. This would be a full-time job. So granted, on paper, the mayor's position is a part-time role. But we all know that our city has outpaced that to be a part-time position. You deserve someone with a business aspect like I have that is going to give full-time dedication to the city. So I would be resigning my position in the corporate life that I have now as soon as I am elected. So my last day there would be right before I am sworn in here to office to serve you. So I dedicate myself and my time to this city. I've proven time and time again with the amount of hours that I volunteer, whether it be at the PTO at the elementary or intermediate school, to the beautification board, to spending hours researching things for city council. I'm dedicating my time, my passion for you as citizens for the betterment of our town.
All right. Scott.
Well, since November of last year, I have been retired from my career, so I have all the time I can give to doing this job. Also, you know, my kids are grown and out of the house, so the wife would like for me to be out of the house a little more. So attending all those events and all would be my pleasure and my honor as the city's mayor.
All right. Following along kind of in the theme of those, how would you be willing to fight for our city? And please give examples of how you have to do this and any other situations that you're now involved in. Scott?
Well, you just got to be present, be where you need to be when we're trying to get things done with the county level. You have to be there, talking to them, letting them know how bad we need it, how much it would mean to the community, and the same thing with the state and the state level. Be in contact, stress the needs of the community, and offer any help that we can offer to help make those projects come to fruition. And that's a daily job.
All right. All right.
So, to Scott's point, you've got to be active. You've got to be strong in your position for the city. Whether it's meeting down in Montgomery for Aldott, whether it be in Columbia for Shelby County Board of Education, whether it be with the Parks and Rec Department, with them having to deal with the Central Alabama Football Association, or whatever the case may be. I am the champion for this town. I am the one that will be going to bat each and every day. So, the second part of that question was, how have you fought in the past for things? So, I work a corporate job. So, I am going into boardrooms and meetings all day, every day, with different executives for a Fortune 500 bank. I'm not always going to get my way, but I'm going to have my facts straight. I'm going to make sure that my opinion is going to count. And I'm going to make sure that not only do I have a seat at that table for what my role is within the organization, but for the city, but I want my voice to be heard while I'm having that seat at the table.
All right. With our new shopping areas opening up next year, which is not that far away, what would be your plan to assist or help to alleviate traffic issues? Ryan?
Traffic issues are going to be a nightmare in this town, and that's because we are so far behind as a city. But we cannot stop growing as a city because of that, because once we stop growing, we then become stagnant. And we cannot do that, because once you become stagnant, your city dies off. And that's the last thing anybody in this room or anybody that's a resident of our town would want. So to help with that is we've got to think outside the box. And I know I've said that a couple of times already, but we've really got to start thinking outside the box and not do what we've always done, because that's where we are now. Years and years of doing what we've always done has gotten us here. So how do we progress and get better in the future? So we need to look as a city to start looking for ways to alleviate small traffic items where we can. So again, I mentioned a little while ago, we're not going to be able to pay the $50 million to do the bypass. We're going to have to rely on Aldott to do that, okay? But there are small things that we can do. Whether it's the $350,000 to bring in a traffic light at Highway 13, 52 intersection, because Shelby County, it's a Shelby County road. Do we want to wait on them? No. We want to go ahead and make sure we're listening to the voices of our citizens that live down that area, that are begging and pleading and have been for a new traffic light. We need to do that, and we need to step up as a city for that. Another great example is about 3 months ago, I believe, or 2 months ago, the city council, which I sit on, approved $1.2 million of city funds to help add a turn lane and widen the intersection where the new development's going to be. We could have waited on AlDOT because it's a state road. We could have waited on them to do it. But would that have brought the commercial businesses in? Probably not, especially not in a timely manner. So we went ahead as a city to make sure that we funded that ahead of time. So it's thinking outside the boxes and making sure the small projects we do ourselves and rely on the bigger projects for the AlDOT and Shelby County Department of Transportation.
Scott?
All right, yeah, as Brian said, you know, that's going to be a big help with the turn lane and widen that intersection for the Chick-fil-A shopping center and those businesses that come in there. But also we have the opportunity, there are several areas where we can connect roads to other roads to help create a route around the city. I think some of those things have already been, you know, in the works or in planning, but haven't been carried through on. So if we can divert traffic around the busy areas for people so they can get home and not have to drive through all that, I think that would be the biggest thing we can do there.
Okay, let's turn to Old Town for a moment. I think in the most recent city council meeting, it became known as an entertainment district. What does this look like for you? Would there be allowances for people openly walking around with alcoholic beverages?
That is what an entertainment district is, I believe. You know, within the confines of the defined district, you are allowed to move from one establishment to the next with a beverage. That gives you opportunity to go to a shop and look at something in the shop or a boutique. But yeah, moving around the district with a beverage is part of an entertainment district. I think we've got a few safety issues I think that have to be addressed also with that. There may be a need for more lighting in that area if people are going to be walking and crossing the street at nighttime. Also, you know, I'd like to talk to the people that live directly adjacent to that area and see what their concerns are over that and how to alleviate those concerns and make them feel like they won't be disturbed while they're at home with their families at night, you know, as far as noise and things that go on and such as that.
All right. Okay, let's turn to something.
You want me to answer that one?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I mean, it's cool. I mean,
No.
he said yes,
I
so I mean, we're good.
I knew that was going to happen. I forecast that. No, my record's a little better.
I know.
Mr. Puckett.
Okay. I've already lost 12 seconds. Wow. No.
I'll give it.
The banter, it's amazing. But no, to Scott's point, yes. An entertainment district label does mean that people can carry alcoholic open containers in the cups of the establishment or in cups that are designated by the Helena Old Town board, or the hot board that is established for the arts and the patrons for the Old Town area. Now, they can walk only in that assigned district, but let's think about it for a second. It's more than just an open container. Think about what this is doing for our town. It's making Old Town now a destination. Instead of people having to go to Hoover or to go to downtown Birmingham, people can now come, shop, and relax and enjoy their life here in Helena, where they live. So it's more about the culture and less about the open container, as well as think about the types of businesses that we will now be able to draw in to Old Town locations. So there's empty storefronts sitting in Old Town right now. That's not what we want as a city. We want to have boutiques. We want to have shopping. We want that to be that destination area in that entertainment district.
All right. My apologies.
No, you're good.
Moving into something that I think is probably on every resident's mind is plans for upgrading water systems in some of the older neighborhoods. For example, Derrick Downs. I know I live in Woodvale, and it's been there 31 years. Could this be addressed before adding more neighborhoods?
So that's a trick question. So updating our water system in Helena is going to be a massive undertaking. Okay? So we know that there's already developed residential developments that are on the books that are approved that those developers can come in and start building now. So I don't want to ever say that, no, we're going to stop all building until we fix the water, or nobody can build until we fix the water. We have to tackle that as things are starting to progress as well. So a couple different things that we can think about for the water system for Helena, because we hear, and especially we've gotten a lot of questions through the last couple months of people's different water pressures, just like you mentioned, Mr. Peters, is that we don't know as a city, as a utility board, where all of our pipes are, the conditions of all of our pipes. So one of the first things that I'm going to do as mayor and leading the utility board is to make sure that we do an analysis on and find out where every substation is, every pipe is, and the condition of each of them. And then what we're going to do is use a Pew matrix to be able to prioritize each and every one based on the needs that we have for each pipe and each pumping station and each substation. Then we're going to start incrementally working to fix, repair, and replace those items so that we can increase. I know I don't have all the answers, especially with the water system, but we have on the city payroll an engineering company that we use a contract with to be able to give us the advice and guidance for our water system. They need to provide us a recommendation of as the city and as the leaders of the city of how we need to move forward in a rapid pace, but also be prudent of making sure we do everything the right way and the most cost-efficient way.
Scott?
Well, in researching that question, I found that there is a problem with the main line going into Deering Downs that is on the way to being replaced, hopefully, for all those that live in Deering Downs. So as we get in, that will be a major priority on that, is getting that main replaced, because it needs to be replaced. It's been repaired. It's failing again, possibly. So that will be a top priority. And you can't go and just replace everything in the city that needs replacing at one time, as Brian was saying. You've got to do these projects incrementally, find the worst spots, replace those, and then as you go along, hopefully you get them all fixed, and then you've got a nice brand new kind of system here. But yeah, you have to do it a little bit at a time as your budgets allow.
Arnie? Looking at the, and I believe you both sort of mentioned the developer situation, so what would you demand as mayor of developers wanting to build more houses in Helena? And part of that question is, do you support an increase in impact fees? Stop.
Well, our impact fees have been increased here recently to be more in line with other cities such as Pelham, Alabaster, and Hoover. We don't want to get too high on impact fees, because that adds too much cost to new homes and might put somebody out of the cost of being able to afford that home that they want. The impact fees weren't so high. But it's always an option to increase it if there is a need. And using the impact fees to help with the infrastructure of those new neighborhoods, getting them in and out, the traffic. We're going to eventually need a new fire station on Highway 13 probably. So impact fees can help them toward that. Also, we'll require them more than one way in and out of the neighborhood. I know in Hillsborough we have the one way in, one way out. So we would like to see at least two ways of egress in each and every neighborhood to give people more access to get in and out and not be stuck waiting so long.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Ready?
Okay. So, yeah, I agree. We need to have more than one way in and out of the neighborhood. Or we don't need to have two entrances. It's very similar to Riverwoods, where they're right there next to each other. The City Council of Helena saw that as an issue about a month and a half ago, and they have addressed it already. So that's off the books. We don't have to worry about that. Planning and zoning is going to take care of that. It's not a mayor's job to do that. So it's the City Council's job to recommend that to the Planning and Zoning Committee, because they're the ones, we have separations of powers. We've got to remember that. Okay? Mayor's day-to-day, planning and zoning is making sure that the developers are doing right. But as a mayor, I do have influence with those developers. Okay? People want to come into this town. Developers do. They want to develop here because we know and they know that they're going to sell those houses at a premium. Okay? We want to keep that value the way that it is, but we also want the developers to start playing ball with us. Okay? We've rubber stamped stuff for a long time in the city. We've got to go to those developers and we've got to demand things if they want to develop in our town the way they want to. They've got to give stuff back to the city. Whether it be at a fire station or a police substation on Highway 13 with Valley Land and Timber, or whether it be someone donating land as a part of their development for a new sports complex. We've got to leverage these developers in order to get stuff in-house for the city to be able to take advantage of. We can't just let them build house after house after house with not getting anything in return. And on the building impact fee, I agree. The fees were about a year and a half ago raised, so we're more in line now with Alabaster Cullen and Hoover on our building impact fees. But again, it goes back to what I just mentioned. Developers want to be here. Developers want to develop here. So if we increase those building impact fees on a stair-step basis, those developers are still going to want to come here, and we'll be getting more revenue for our general fund to be able to hire more associates and employees within the departments, as well as being able to, I'm out of time.
Good, you're following the zip.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to go over the questions here and try to determine some that kind of follow along with that, but you sort of mentioned this about the fire and police. So what do you plan to do to help support the Helena Police and Fire? And in that regard, how can we improve these programs, further their education, and make their salaries competitive with cities of similar size? And do we need to increase the force size? Right?
Yes, yes, and yes. So that's really...
That's cheap.
Yeah. So really, our first responders, whether it be a police officer or be a fireman, those are some of the most prestigious individuals in this town. And they need to be held in that way. They need to be compensated in that way. Statistically speaking, do we need to get to 42 police officers for Helena versus the 26 full-time that we have right now? We need to get more, but we don't need to get to that 42 because our crime rate doesn't warrant it. There's a lot of different things that would warrant raising police officers. Now, firemen, we need to be creative with that. We need to make sure that we bring back and fully staff our volunteer firefighters, okay? So right now, our firemen, we have some full-time, we have some part-time, and we have a couple volunteers. We really need to strive and build that volunteer program up. We also need to look at reserve police officers as well. So if we can't hire all these extra officers to get to that 42, what are we doing to allow the citizens to be able to volunteer and give their time and services? So there's a lot of police officers and firemen that live in this town that work in other municipalities. Whether it be a fire captain that works in Bessemer that lives in River Woods, to a Montevallo police officer that lives off of Roy Court. It's those type of people that would be willing to give back to us.
Well, to that point, being a police officer for 25 years, there's not a lot of time for extracurriculars like that because you never work a regular shift. You're never at home. You sacrifice time with your family to go to work, to do the extra jobs, to provide the security at the high school football games, at the city events. So to ask, that of a lot of first responders, that'd be a tough sell. I think we do need to add firemen. I want to add full-time firemen, full-time, full-trained firemen to protect this city also. Like I said, the FBI crime numbers say we need X number of this, X number of that. Well, that's not a blanket, rule for everybody. You have to take each city has to take it into consideration what their actual crime rate is, what their rate calls are, to determine how many people they need. But I do think we need to add some firemen for sure. So yeah, that's
all right. Okay, this question is kind of a little bit more along your personal contribution here, and the question varies. So, for Scott, what has your attendance been so far at the city council meetings?
Well, since I decided to run for mayor, I've been to every city council meeting that's been held live.
And how long a period of time is that?
Couple months.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm sure a lot of people don't know how long it was before you decided this, right? And for
So I have not missed a single meeting since I've been in city council member. It's not a meeting that we should ever miss. Now, we do know that family emergencies can come up, but guess what? Vacation should be scheduled around it. It's supposed to be our dedication to the city, okay? We should be there for those meetings. So I have not missed one since I've been there. And I missed 4 in the 5 years previous to that before I sat on city council. Every single city council meeting, 5 years before I was a city council member, I was sitting in those meetings on the front row. So it's about dedicating yourself to the city, not when it's convenient.
Alrighty. What is your position on property taxes? Right?
We're at 5 mils, lowest property tax in the area. Our nearest peer competitor, or near peer municipality, is going to be Alabaster and Pelham. They're at 14 mils. So do I think that our property tax is lower than it should be? Yes. But it's not my job as a mayor to tell you what the property taxes should be. That's the citizens that should be voting on that. Now, just as an example, if you raised the property tax, if the citizens raised property tax and doubled it to 10 mils, that would cost you $8.57 per $200,000 a month. That's it. So it's not that much money. But then, as what you think of it, what we can do as a city, is that would give us $1.6 million annually into the general fund. So do I think that it's time that we need to look at that? Yes. Do I think it's our decision as a mayor or a city council to make that decision? No. I think it should be left up to the citizens to vote on.
Scott?
Well, nobody likes to hear the T word, that's for sure. I've thought about this issue before we came tonight, and I think that a property tax increase for me would be one of the last things I would want to look at, to ask people to pay more, especially during the times that we're in now, COVID. So many people have lost work, had their hours reduced. I think at the soonest we should even think about that is after this process is over. I know it's not really a whole lot of money per household, but every little bit helps everyone. So I would say property tax would be the last thing that I would want to look at this present time.
All right. This wasn't my question, but this is one that I have a lot of ideas on, or not ideas so much as I really do support, and that is, how do you plan, if you're elected mayor, on keeping the city informed about what is going on in the city? That is newsletters, social media, Twitter, et cetera, all that sort of stuff. Scott?
Oh, obviously, yeah, social media for sure. City website, city newsletter, maybe Helena City News Magazine helps us. You know, they put out a lot of information periodically. So anything that happen will be posted on my social media or the city's social media.
So I think you have to use all the mediums of communication in order to get the message out. Depending on the type of message that needs to go out, we need to make sure that we're leveraging platforms like Nixle to give out those emergency notices. We need to make sure that we are leveraging social media, and then we're also using print media as well, whether it be the Helena Reporter, whether it be the Helena City News, to be able to get certain messages out. A lot of times you need lead time with that print media, so to get to the masses quickest is social media. We know that. One of the things that has taken place in the past 6 months is the city's website was redesigned. It was a proposal that I brought to the city council, and so we've made it from a site that is government focused to more of a community focused. And there's an alert that is on that website, a banner that runs across the top. That's a great tool to be able to get out in a quick message, and then that also links to all of the city's social media. So when a city employee adds something to the website, it pushes it to the city's Twitter, the city's Facebook, and Instagram page.
All right, okay. I know this is going to come as a big surprise to both of you. Some people in our community say that we have a traffic problem. What do you think? How would you mitigate those concerns, or perhaps even change the situation? And how do you plan to advocate for improved roads?
Absolutely. So I think a little bit I've already answered in some previous questions as far as beating the door down of Aldott and Shelby County. We've got to have a leader in here that's going to for the citizens. We can't have somebody that just sits back. We gotta have somebody that's going after the prize, which is getting them to fund our new roads. Okay? We also need to be, as I mentioned earlier, think about how we can fund things that are the smaller projects as a city so that we can eliminate or alleviate some of the major issues. We know that when COVID hit, the traffic got a lot better, so we know that we're not going to live in that reality forever. So we've got to do everything we can as city leadership to make sure that we're pushing forward and pushing all the different levers that we can to make sure that we're not putting all of our eggs in Aldot's basket or Shelby County's basket. We need to be working all the different levers at one time so that we can see improvements happen faster.
All right, Scott?
Yeah, I'm in total agreement. I mean, we basically said the same thing about the roads in every little event we've been at. So that's an area that we're in total agreement on, and there's no moving away from that. So,
Well, that's one that I recall, as I said, I've been here 31 years. I recall driving down 261 to Helena with my wife and saying, I bet they're going to 4-lane this road just any day now.
Saying that.
Yeah, and we keep saying that, yes. All right, I'm going to go away from scripture for just a moment. So, in that regard, what specifically do you think can be done to get that project moving period? Just moving. Yeah.
the 261 project is moving. They've approved, I think it's $30 million to get that project going. It's supposed to start next year. It's supposed to start getting it ready, and then in 2022 it's supposed to be getting close to finished, I hope. So we have, we got some good news on that front. The next thing I would encourage us to do is to try to get Highway 52 widened at 4-lane to go up to South Shakes Crest to meet where it's being 4-lane coming back this way. It's like, you just keep knocking on the door, like Brian, we've said the whole time, knocking on the door and trying to see if we can put any incentive into it to offset costs and get it done quicker. You just got to keep pounding away on it and let people that have the money know how important it is to our community and how bad we need it.
All right.
Be aggressive with it. And I know I say that a lot, but I always lean on my business background of spending 15 years in the corporate life and knowing what it takes to actually get something done. And that's being persistent, and it's being aggressive with that persistence. I threw a couple extra S's in there, but it's cool. I could spell it anyway.
I can't spell it anyways.
So, we've got to make sure that we as city leaders are being strong partners for those different type of agencies. So, as Scott mentioned, we beat the road to death, it seems like, on all these different events because our answers are very similar. Okay? But the difference that I think that I bring is I have a proven track record of having that corporate mentality. I've got the track record of doing things for the city.
That's all right.
Let's go. For doing things for the city. So I know what it takes to be not only having a seat at that table, but having the voice of the residents at that table. So Scotty mentioned the 261 project. I can remember 10 years ago living in Chadwick, where they bought the houses up in that stretch of 261 and used them as fire drills for the firemen of Pelham and Helena. That was 10 years ago. Okay? We've got to put the pressure on Aldot to start putting their money where their mouth has been for the past 15 years.
Okay. You have sort of nailed the next question, and that is, what experience do you have that prepares you specifically for managing a multi-million-dollar budget of the city of Helena?
So budgets are a big thing. So the city government for Helena is a council-led or council majority government. So it's the mayor's responsibility to manage that day-to-day budget, which is about $14 million right now. So in my corporate life, in my experience, is my budget over the e-signature program at the bank that I work for is about double what the city's budget is. So that means each and every day, I'm having to negotiate contracts that are $4 to $5 million, or paying a contractor that is $50 an hour. Okay? Each and every day I'm having to manage that budget, and I have to answer the questions and make the decisions on can we spend this money or do we need to hold on. So that's my experience of running a big budget, because this is more than just a household budget.
All right. Scott?
My budget experience is pretty much limited to when I was in law enforcement. We would have to come up with a departmental budget. We had to decide and figure out what we could do with that, what we had to have, how much money we had to spend, and so on and so forth. So I'm limited on the budgetary experience, but I do have 25 years of experience working within municipal governments and seeing their budgets come to fruition and seeing how they're created.
Okay, all right. This is somewhat of a kind of a what-if kind of question, but do you think you would ever find yourself in a position of going against the governor if you felt the state government was overstepping their bounds? Scott?
Well, I would have no problem standing up for the community here if we thought something was out of line for the state. You got to realize the state makes the laws. You got to have friends in Montgomery. You have to know when to pick your battles to go against people like that. And so maintaining the peace with them, I think, is in our best interest. But if something were to come up that required action, yes, I would definitely be able to do that.
Okay, all right.
So with this, I think that for more times than not, we have to do what's best for our citizens of Helena. Montgomery knows a lot, and we've got to follow a lot of laws and rules, and we've got to know as a leader those rules. So whether it's your campaign finance reports that you haven't filed, or the golf cart ordinance that our golf cart or low-speed vehicle law that's in place. Helena knows what's best for Helena. Okay, so I've been working a good bit with Senator Chambliss down in Prattville on the low-speed vehicle. Okay, we've got to make sure that we do what's best for our residents. And I know that a lot of people have asked that question in regards to the mask ordinance. I believe strongly with Lieutenant Governor Ainsworth when he came out right after Governor Ivey made his mandate that it's against personal limits, in my opinion. Now, do I think that we need to social distance and we need to wear masks when we're out in public? Absolutely. But do I think that we should mandate it and require it for every single person, no matter what? I'm strongly against that.
You did? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm trying to think what question's going next. Oh, yeah. Just blame it on age. It's all right. Okay. Are you in favor of giving companies tax breaks to build or open in Helena?
Yes. And I'll say my record shows that. So Helena's had a history up until about 6 months ago of we never did any tax abatements. So any development that came into this town paid their fair share of sales tax. But we know as a city to be competitive with all of our peer municipalities, we have to think about how can we get these opportunities for Helena residents. So the development that happened down in 26117, the Chick-fil-A, the Freddy's, all of the Dollar Tree, all of that stuff that's coming in, we worked out a deal as a city council with that developer, and we did give them tax abatements with that. But we knew that in all of our negotiation, we never took what they gave us right out of the gate, and they never took what we got. So we negotiated with them for probably about 3.5 months to get to a deal that is best for the Helena residents. So do we know that we need to give those type of things to bring in the best? Absolutely. But I think as a leader, you've got to make sure that you're doing everything you can to mitigate as much of that as possible so that the expense that you're going to incur or lack of revenue that you're going to incur with those tax abatements, that you can make up in a rapid pace. So a great example is with that development currently, we have caps on it of how much they can defer or not have to pay in their sales tax annually. And that's a comfortable number for all of the city council members that voted on that. Because we know that what we get in revenue will be a lot more than what that cap was. And we know that the 10-year max that we had set, that it could string out to, that when you crunch all of the numbers based off of projected revenues, that within about 3 to 4 years, all of those tax incentives will be gone, and it'll be all tax revenue for the city.
Well, I'm kind of the opinion that if we're gonna, impose the impact fees and things on the builders, and we're gonna incrementally increase them as we can, that I don't really think we should, if Helena's in that much of demand, if builders wanna build here, then it's in that much demand that businesses wanna come here. So I'm not really, in favor of tax breaks for the businesses. We're not giving our current business, people that have been here, 15, 20, 25 years, breaks on their taxes also. So I'm not with business tax breaks.
Okay, all right. In light of what the sign did just 2 minutes ago, how do you plan to support our Helena Business Association?
Every way possible. We give them the support, try to provide anything we can that they need, provide opportunities for the events, to have them wherever they need to have them. I'm all about supporting the businesses that we already have here, because they've been with us for a long time. They need our support right now. With the loss of revenue and stuff that they've suffered this year, anything we can do to help get back to them and get them back on their feet is what we need to do.
Okay.
Okay, so I think the first thing that I should do as your next mayor is show up. If the HBA asks you to come to something, make time for them. Okay, these are the business owners that support our community. As a leader, we've got to make sure that we're doing everything in our power to make sure that we're doing what we can to support those businesses. I know that in the meeting that we had, I believe it was Tuesday, right? Tuesday? Yes. That there was a lot of open dialogue between all of the different candidates that came about how we could help the HBA. And there was a lot of great ideas that came out of it, from a marketing campaign to just being able to set up mentorships, so forth like that. So as your leader, not only do we have to have just these as ideas, but you need a leader that's going to be able to put those into place.
All right, okay. We have one that we're going to go ahead and take from the audience here. And this start with you.
Okay.
Okay. What would be your first act as mayor on day one of the new job?
Hold a staff meeting. Our department heads are the leaders of this city for every department, whether it be Bill Miller, that's over the Parks and Rec department, whether it be Chief Fulmer over the police department. Bringing all of those department heads together and actually having a conversation with them of what can I do to better support you. Because I'm not the expert in any of those. They are. And I've got to rely on them, not only on day one, but on the last day of this 4th year. I've got to rely on those department heads to be able to lead and guide their departments. So the first thing that I'm going to do is sit down with them and have a face-to-face conversation of what can I do to help you.
Yeah, I think that is very important. Meeting with all the department heads, sitting down with them and developing some kind of plan, how we can help them move forward and achieve their goals and what they need from us, as the city government to increase their ability to perform those duties. All departments, from the police to fire, public works, street department. Yeah, so definitely a meeting for sure with all those to see where we need to go from where we are.
Okay, all right. What, in your opinion, is the most important for our city right now? Is it building new homes and commercial space, rehabbing, expanding, better utilizing our existing homes and storefronts, or some other topic? Yeah, some of these questions are a bit open.
Well, I think, the main thing that I want to look at for the city is the quality of life that we can provide for our citizens. Whether it be through improving our parks and rec, it can be improving our little league facilities, helping alleviate some of our traffic things. So anything that we can do to improve the quality of life for our community, is of the utmost importance to me.
Okay. Brian?
Planning. I think that's the biggest thing right now, is we need to put a plan in place for our future. So, and it could be from, let's take the development plan, for example. So people talk about development. We know development's going to continue because there's a lot of stuff that's already on the books. So how do we plan and put a plan in place that we can actually execute on? So a lot of times people will talk about the comprehensive plan. It was written in 2003. Helena's changed since 2003. Okay, it was updated in 2016. Still, a lot of things have changed in Helena since 2016. We need to rely on planning, regional planning and commission, along with some other type consultants to make a plan for Helena. And we need to look at it as not just the city limits of Helena, we also need to look at the outer boundaries of Helena and a little bit of space past those boundaries. Because anytime we annex property in, it's not a part of that comprehensive plan today. So we've got to make sure that we're planning for our future and then we're executing on that plan. Because a plan is only as good as the piece of paper that it's written on, and the thousands of dollars that you have to spend for that comprehensive plan, but it's execution by the leaders of the city. That's what I bring to the table.
Okay. We have kind of another bit of a free-for-all question here, and that is, if you received a $1 million grant, and I think about $1 million, that's a lot, but it's probably not enough. We probably need to make it like $10 million. To use for the city in any way you want it, what would you do with it and why? Right?
So we're going with $1 million or 10?
10. Let's go with 10. One doesn't just seem like it's...
And we can do anything with it. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
This is like the supermarket express where you're going in with the buggy and grabbing everything off the car, off the shelves. Perfect.
Great analogy, I love it.
So what we have to think about is what are the biggest needs for our city today? It's human capital. It's the employees of this city. We have about 100 employees in this town that work for the city. But every department is understaffed. So we need to look at extra resources there. But then we also need to look at things that we need to replace because we have kicked a can down the road and hadn't been able to provide the resources and tools that those employees need. A great example is there's no fireman that should ever be using a uniform that is 9 years old. We need to look for things like that within the city. So again, it goes back to using different type of exercises and training that I have from the corporate world to be able to prioritize all of the things that we need, or list out all the things that we need, and then prioritize it. And then we just go down the list and we're buying, and we get $2 million, right? Perfect.
Right. Scott, it's 10 million.
$10 million, all right. Yeah. Yeah, I think this, we can spend $10 million on anything. I mean, let's get the kids a splash pad and improve the parks and give the employees raises. Let's just go for broke, get them all brand new cars and stuff. A couple of new fire trucks, we can do all that for $10 million. But yeah, quality of life issues and reward the employees and add some quality of life amenities for the citizens. I would do if I had a wish list of $10 million.
All right. We're running close to the time of 7:30 here. We're still a few minutes away, but I wanted to make sure that you each had the allotted full 2 minutes to be able to summarize, say whatever you want to. I'm trying to find the sheet here. You're basically any remaining information that you believe maybe you haven't covered or that you find would be helpful for decision makers here in the process of voting. So we'll go ahead and start with Scott.
Well, if y'all haven't been able to tell so far, I'm not a politician. I'm a regular guy that loves this community. I spent 20 years living here. I want to serve this community. I think Brian and I both want the same thing for this community, and that's for just to move forward. A lot of our ideas are the same. We've got a few things we differ on. And now it's up to the people to decide who they want, as their next mayor. And I'll just be honored for that opportunity and ask for your vote on the 25th.
All right.
Well, first and foremost, thank you all for taking the time out of y'all's day to come here. And for the people that are online, thank you for watching and taking an hour of your time to watch it. So really what this comes down to is, who do you want to be the leader of the future for Helena? Someone who is energetic, someone who is ready to go after it and fight for everything that you need in Helena. I just know with my background in the corporate world that I have that business experience. I am here for Helena residents. I've been here for the Helena residents. Okay? From all of my time in years of volunteering to sitting on city council, we need to have a leader that knows what's going on with all of the different acumens of the city in order to continue pushing us forward. Scott mentioned that a lot of our ideas are the same, and that's exactly true. We've had a lot of conversations in events like this, and a lot of our ideas are the exact same. So what it comes down to is, who do you as a voter want to see leading us into the future? I ask for your support, I ask for your vote on August 25th, and if you would like to see any more about me and my ideas, please go to my website, pucketforhelena.com, where there's a lot of information about me and what I plan to implement for the future of Helena.
All right, thank you. I want to thank both of you, Brian, Scott, thank you. Really need to thank all of you all for coming too. I think it's wonderful that there's only a few empty seats in the facility here, and that says a lot about the citizens of Helena, I think. I think also we need to thank the Helena Business Association, especially Deidre George here, for hosting this event, and I certainly thank them for allowing me to be the moderator. Just like live television, I goof once in a while, so that just goes with the territory. Are you all both going to stick around? So if anybody had a question that didn't get answered? Okay. So thank you. Everybody be safe. Let's get this pandemic wrapped up and put it in the jar so we can have football this fall.